Welcome back to PROUT Rev. Today I'm going to talk about immigration and PROUT. The coronavirus pandemic has hit all sectors of the population really hard, but one in particular that has been suffering greatly and without any real consideration from the government is the immigrant population. Right now, the epicenter of the coronavirus in the United States is in New York City with the most cases, the most deaths. And actually, in the city of Queens, which is one of the most diverse cities in New York, the immigrant population there are dying around 200 to 300 people a day. So we're seeing many different sectors of the immigrant population suffering. The DACA recipients, those young people who grew up in this country and were supposed to get special consideration from the government and give them a pathway to citizenship. Trump fought that when he entered government and has been trying to take away that promise. And that promise could be taken away these days, any day now, when the Supreme Court makes a decision. And then these DACA recipients will be completely vulnerable. About 30,000 of them are healthcare workers, and 300,000 of them are essential workers. Beyond the DACA recipients, the immigrant population in general, these are the folks that cannot stay at home to work. They are the working class. They are the ones who are out in the society cleaning, growing food, doing so many jobs that cannot be done from home. And the government is not giving them any special consideration. In California, the governor there gave them a $125 million relief. But unfortunately, in places like New York, where they're suffering tremendously, the governor is not doing anything for them there. On top of this, we're seeing these attacks on immigrants in general. Like I mentioned in the previous segment, that Trump is canceling immigration into the country for 60 days. Also, in the stimulus relief, in the stimulus package that they gave out, if you are a U.S. citizen married to an undocumented person, you are not eligible for those funds. So not only is obviously the undocumented person not eligible, but even the citizen, the American citizen who's married to them, just because they're married to them. And if they did their taxes together. So that is just an attack. And immigrants are being used as scapegoats. But there is no connection to be made. This virus has nothing to do with the immigrant population, but yet immigrants are being attacked, like I mentioned. Let me go ahead and just talk about some different aspects of immigration. These are just some categories of immigrants. There could be many more. The first thing I wanted to address is that PROUT has this visionary concept that all people have the right to settle anywhere in the universe. One day, perhaps a long time from now, when PROUT is established, we'll see that people no longer have passports or visas because we live by this doctrine, this universalist sentiment. It's quite beautiful, but in our current time, obviously, it probably couldn't be implemented practically. Now, that is a nice sentiment that all people can go anywhere they like, but there are exceptions. For example, if there is intentional infiltration or expansionism, like when the Chinese moved into Tibet and occupied it. So that's clearly expansionist. And Trump tried to claim that immigrants were expansionists. When there was a caravan coming from Central America of people who were seeking relief and asylum in the U.S. border, he called it an invasion. And the people in his base agreed with that. However, the truth is that they were not invading this country, and they were actually refugees in need of humanitarian support. So this is another category of immigrants that PROUT would consider very thoughtfully. And when you have situations like this, like in Syria, the people that had to leave Syria because of the war, those people genuinely need help, they need relief, they need to be taken in by different governments. And PROUT would advocate for that. There's economic migrants who leave their homes because of limited resources in their local areas. Now, the fact of the matter is that when immigrants today leave their homes and they come to the United States, they're leaving their local economies because their local economies suffer. There are no jobs where they live. There are no resources for them to develop themselves and to develop the local economy. That has a lot to do with the fact that many poor countries just export raw goods, and then rich countries export finished goods. And so who makes more money? Who gets to develop their products more? Obviously, the rich countries. PROUT is against that. In PROUT, we have the idea of self-sufficient socioeconomic zones where countries do not just export products or raw goods, they try to export finished products as much as possible so that the raw goods stay in the local area in order to be utilized better. And exportation happens for benign purposes to help other socioeconomic zones or countries that have shortages of particular things. There can be some interzone planning, and they can help each other with their shortages for nonprofit purposes. So that's a broad topic which I'll explore in another video, the self-sufficient socioeconomic zones. But the truth is that these migrants that come who are fleeing broken down economies, they are fleeing that because local economies are not developed. That is not a priority of capitalism. That is not a priority of the governing global trade organizations. And so these economic migrants who are here, they are now living in this country. They are now living in this society. They have regular employment. They pay taxes. They're raising their children. They are spending money in the local community. Their socioeconomic interests are merged with the socioeconomic interests of the local place. And so they should have a right to citizenship. They should be considered lawful local people and have access to all of the amenities possible in that area. Then there's other types of immigrants who we might say are investors. So people who come to a local area and they are opening up businesses, and then they take that capital back to their home countries. And so they are not developing the local economy. They're actually there to kind of suck the blood out of local economies. And PROUT is against that because PROUT is all about that all of the businesses are owned by local people and that the money stay in the local communities. I want to close by mentioning one vision that PROUT has. Ideally, in the future, people will not leave their local homes, have to travel abroad to start a new life. Nobody really likes to do that. Everybody has a very strong sentiment for their local area. It is a sacrifice to have to do that. The people of this country who hate immigrants forget that. They think that these foreigners are here trying to take their jobs, take their things. But these foreigners, quote unquote, are people who had to sacrifice to leave their homes, their families, and come to a new place where they are discriminated against. As I was saying, in the future, PROUT would strive to develop all local areas, all rural areas, so that people from rural areas also don't feel like they need to come to the cities. Actually, rural areas are often cleaner and more inspiring than the cities. And often in rural areas, although people are sparsed out, they actually know each other even more. They know each other's livelihoods. But in the city, sometimes even in a building, people don't know their neighbors. Just a few doors down, they have no clue who those people are. They have no clue how those people make their living. So we shouldn't live in a world where rural areas don't get developed and the brightest people of those areas have to leave, like we see here in the United States. I live in Washington, D.C., and the joke is that there are no local people from Washington, D.C. People get surprised when I tell them that I'm from DC, because everybody's coming from all over the country. And when the local areas are developed, we will see less immigration and we will see less economic migrants coming and having to sacrifice themselves. In fact, when they come to the new places, they take on, like I was saying, the worst and most difficult jobs. And those people should be honored. Those people should be, once it is assessed that they are merging their socioeconomic interests with the local area, then they should be given a pathway to citizenship. They should be considered local people. Thank you so much for watching this segment on PROUT and immigration. Stay tuned for a video on the first fundamental factor of PROUT, and I will see you there.